Welcome back to the channel. Before I get into this one, The Masterharper of Pern by McCaffrey, just want to say, if you could, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications. It helps me out. Leave a comment down below if you want, and we can always. I always love hearing from you. So going into the Masterharper of Pern, this one is the first book of the ninth pass, and it's different compared to the other ones. The main character, Robinson, is not a dragon rider. He can speak to dragons and hear dragons, but he's a harper. And his father and mother, his mother's the master singer, his father is the master composer at the Harper Hall. So he gets some very quick abilities. He's able to make instruments very young. He's able to start writing at the age of 3, which is probably even before Mozart wrote. He also was able to do variations on various themes that existed in composition. As well as being an accomplished singer. He could play the flute and pretty much every other instrument, guitar, drums, whatever. So the Harper Hall, at least in this sense, is what the Harpers are. They were basically musicians, even though there were other crafts going on in the hall. You had the healer, you had the scribe, the archivist. There are many different facets to the Harper Hall. The one thing that is puzzling when this book starts is you find out that there's only one weir left, Bendon Weir. All the other weirs have been abandoned. The last one being at Fort, which is kind of interesting because that was like where the bulk of the third pass took place, was at Fort's Weir. And for there to be only one weir, which is at Bendon, so you don't have very many dragons. You only have like one, maybe 2 queens. There's not many clutches. You're wondering, this is still in the interval. Thread hasn't fallen yet, but you wonder how are these dragons and these riders going to fight Thread when they have maybe 300 total, if even that? And they're not able to replenish the full amount of what they would lose. One other interesting thing that I thought in here is that Robinson wants to impress. He wants to be, if it's possible, he wants to be a harper. He wants to be a dragon rider. He's not sure if he can do both and be both at the same time, but it's what he wants to do. And it's said in the book that basically your ages between 12 and 20 are basically the ages that they seek out during a search, which is interesting because remember Kindon from the third pass. If you're not familiar with those, go see those videos. He impressed later, well into his 30s. Even though one of Flaun's sons impresses a Brown at 10. So I guess, as they say, the dragons make the choice. It's the dragons that choose, not the rider, not the human. So now we're looking at the overall theme. To start, and pretty much throughout, Robinson's dad is, for all intents and better purposes, a dick. Really, he is. Though, in the defense of the father, he expected perfection even of himself. But he was very selfish of Robinson's mother and did not want to share her. And he saw Robinson as doing that. Marilyn, his mother, was also giving him affection and time and lessons and all that stuff. And his father didn't like it, and basically didn't like his own son. Could never find anything to praise his son about. Even when it was found out that he could sing and play instruments and write at a very young age, he would not. He would just walk out of the room or not be there. Um, when Robinson becomes Masterharper, the dad doesn't say congratulations. I mean, he didn't oppose the move that they bestowed upon him, but he didn't congratulate his son. He didn't say, "Hey, I look forward to working with you." His response is, "I want to post. I want out of the hall because it's going to be too awkward for you being the Harper, the Masterharper, and having to sort of accommodate to me if that's going to happen. It would be just embarrassing and can't be the case." So he wants out, and the only places that there are like these really backwards holds that are so small. And his dad's like, "I don't care. That's where I want to go. That's just let me go." And finally, I mean, this is after his mother's had passed. He says, "Okay, you can go." Now, there's some stuff that happens before then, obviously. I just wanted to get the dad out of the way on how the dad was, I think, a real jerk or a dick, basically. Um, but the only true love, I guess that you could say, that Robinson has is short lived. Um, is he and it's while he is in a position he falls in love with, and she falls in love with him, and they become a spouse. And this is basically done where he's at um, his it's his first post, really, um, but it's at, let's see, at Tillich that he has his espousal, what they call the espousal, and it happens at the spring equinox gathering. Now, his isn't the only wedding or espousal. There's like 6 other couples, but most of like the dragon riders are there. They're friends with him. Um, this is before, obviously, he's not Masterharper at this point. He's a journeyman. Um, but he they have this weird honeymoon where they go out on a sloop, and they run into a big storm that they weren't expecting, and the sloop is not able to really, handle it, and they almost capsize. They find, they finally find like a little nook that they can kind of, anchor to, and she barely survives. She's like freezing cold. There's no heat, so he almost loses her there. It's not until after they get back that she never really recovers, but she recovers enough to where she can at least do stuff around the hole until a fever comes, which comes during the winters, and it claims her and takes her. And there's one scene that I think is kind of the perfect culmination of what Anne McCaffrey can do, is when his mother dies. And the father says, "You cannot understand, you cannot fathom what I am going through." And Robinson is taking a gas because he's already lost his wife, his spouse, his mate. And his father keeps saying, "You cannot even imagine." And he's like, "Really? You're going to say that to me? I can't imagine." And the dad stops and looks at him with this just like look of pity in his eyes. And it finally dawns on him that, you know what? I was wrong. Even though, I mean, he's still kind of even a jerk toward the end. He's not in the later part of the book. Once he basically gets shipped out to his position, that's it. He doesn't come back into the story. But I just think that that moment, that connection that was lacking throughout the whole story comes at that moment. I thought it was really, really a perfect way of doing that. Um, Also, she tries to put a little bit of humor in. There's a runner in the hall who he's basically sort of like the hall spy, the Harper Hall spy, and he goes by the name of Nip. And they get another apprentice who just they can't do anything with him. He's always getting into trouble. He just can't do anything. And they Nip is having a hard time just doing all this on his own, running back and forth with messages and making himself scarce and trying to be everywhere at once. So they pass him on to Nip, this apprentice, and he becomes Tuck. So it's now Nip and Tuck. If you get, obviously they wouldn't have known what it meant because there was no plastic surgery, but Nip and Tuck. We know what it is. It's kind of, I think, her little form of humor there. The other main theme is that for the first time, there's an enemy other than Thread on Pern. And it's a very ambitious holder who basically starts to take over holds by force. His name is Fax. And he holds no love for Harpers, holds no love for Dragon Riders. And that's a difference, too, is that Harpers are not very favored in this book. Dragon Riders aren't even all that favored in this book. People doubt that Thread's even coming back. Let alone it's on its way. It's not even going to be coming back. So anyway, with that, it becomes the Harper Hall, and Robinton's main mission is to take down Fax before he can take the whole continent, or at least the whole western side of the continent. How they do that, I will leave that to you to find out, to read. But let's just say that here's where Flar and Lessa come in, and I know their names because Anne McCaffrey wrote a thing in 2011 saying that she's very, very much in control of the ending of what happens between, Flar and Lessa. So they're going to be, I think, the ninth pass characters, but they just come into play here. The book clocks in, at least mine did, at 431 pages. I thought it was a good book. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. There are times when it moves really nice. There are times when it kind of moves slow, but I think she has an overall distinction in this book of how she's able to do certain things. So yeah, a 5-star on Goodreads. I would recommend it. I don't think you have to really start the other books without having read I don't think you have to have read the other ones to read this, but you could. But yeah, so 5 stars, Goodreads. And again, please subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when new videos come up, and also leave a comment down below. I love hearing from you. I always respond back. So until next time, as always, keep YouTube literate, and God bless.